The last salvager of New Eden. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ruins of New Eden Colony, its rays glinting off twisted metal and shattered glass. Maya Chen adjusted her salvage pack straps, the familiar weight of tools and recovered tech components a constant companion in her solitary work. The colony, once humanity's proud attempt at terraforming the harsh world of Kepler 186f, now stood as a testament to nature's stubborn resistance to change. Maya's boots crunched through the frost-covered ground as she made her way through the abandoned industrial sector. Her breath formed small clouds in the cold morning air, each exhale a reminder of the atmospheric processor's failure 3 years ago. The colony's population had dwindled from thousands to just a handful of stubborn survivors, most of them now huddled in the last functioning habitat dome 50 kilometers south. "Another day in paradise," she muttered, activating her scanner. The device, cobbled together from salvaged parts, emitted a soft hum as it searched for valuable tech signatures. Maya had earned a reputation as the most skilled salvager on Kepler 186f, though these days there wasn't much competition. Her ability to repair and repurpose abandoned technology had kept the remaining colonists alive long after official support had ceased. The scanner's display flickered, drawing her attention to a partially collapsed building ahead. Maya approached cautiously, years of experience having taught her that unstable structures were often more dangerous than the planet's native predators. The building's facade bore the faded logo of Nexus Industries, one of the many corporations that had abandoned the colony when the terraforming project failed. Inside, Maya's trained eye quickly identified several promising components: power cells, atmospheric filters, and most importantly, a nearly intact neural interface array. Such technology could fetch a high price from the right buyer, assuming any ships still bothered to visit this forgotten world. She worked methodically, carefully extracting each piece and storing it in her pack's protected compartments. As she reached for a particularly well-preserved power cell, a distant rumble made her freeze. At first, she assumed it was another structural collapse, common enough in the ruins, but this sound was different. It came from above. Maya's eyes widened as she rushed to the building's broken window, looking skyward just in time to see a streak of light tear across the morning sky. The object, clearly artificial, left a trail of plasma in its wake as it descended at a steep angle. Maya's heart raced as she calculated its trajectory. Whatever it was, it would crash somewhere in the Deadlands, the vast stretch of failed terraforming experiments that separated the industrial ruins from the habitat dome. Common sense told her to ignore it. The Deadlands were called that for a reason, and anything that crashed there would likely stay there. But Maya had survived this long by trusting her instincts, and something about that craft's descent felt deliberate, controlled despite its apparent damage. She quickly secured her salvage and headed for her rover, an ancient mining vehicle she'd modified for salvage work. The vehicle's engine rumbled to life, its solar cells drinking in the morning sun as Maya plotted a course toward the crash site. If there was anyone aboard that craft, they'd need help surviving Kepler 186's hostile environment. And if the craft was abandoned, well, alien technology would be the salvage of a lifetime. The rover's wheels kicked up frost and dust as Maya drove toward the Deadlands, her mind racing with possibilities. 3 years of isolation had taught her to be cautious, but it had also taught her that opportunities for change were rare on this dying world. Whatever awaited her at the crash site would at least be something new, something different from the daily routine of scavenging through humanity's failed ambitions. As she approached the border of the Deadlands, Maya caught sight of the impact trail, a long scar carved into the frozen ground. She pulled on her environmental suit, checking the seals twice before stepping out of the rover. The crash site lay ahead, partially obscured by the strange, twisted vegetation that characterized the Deadlands, the result of terraforming organisms mutated by extreme conditions. Maya advanced carefully, her scanner reconfigured to detect any signs of life. The crashed vessel came into view, its design unlike anything she'd seen before. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent material that seemed to shift colors in the morning light, and despite the crash, much of its structure appeared intact. As she drew closer, a panel on the craft's side suddenly slid open with a soft hiss. Maya raised her salvage tool defensively, her heart pounding as a figure emerged from the opening. It was clearly not human. Its proportions were wrong. Its movements too fluid, its skin a pale blue that shifted patterns like the surface of an ocean. The alien's eyes met Maya's, 4 pupils contracting in what she somehow knew was recognition. It raised 2 of its 4 arms in what appeared to be a universal gesture of peace, then spoke in a voice that seemed to bypass Maya's ears and resonate directly in her mind. "Human salvager," it said, the words forming in Maya's consciousness with perfect clarity. "I am Ambassador Kexri of the Collective. I need your help, or 2 civilizations will go to war." Maya stood frozen, her salvage tool still raised, as she processed the situation. After 3 years of isolation, of seeing nothing but human faces and human ruins, she was suddenly faced with a choice that could affect the fate of humanity itself. The ambassador's form swayed slightly, and Maya noticed the signs of injury. A spreading darkness on its iridescent clothing, a tremor in its leftmost arm. She made her decision, lowering her tool and stepping forward. "I'm Maya Chen," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Welcome to what's left of New Eden Colony, Ambassador. Let's get you somewhere safe, and you can tell me what kind of help you need." The ambassador's secret. Maya's rover crawled through the deadlands, its reinforced hull creaking under the strain of carrying both her and her alien passenger. Ambassador Kexri sat in the modified cargo space, 4 arms wrapped around their torso as they fought to maintain consciousness. The alien's bioluminescent patterns had grown dim, pulsing weakly with what Maya assumed was pain or distress. "The safe house is about 20 minutes away," Maya said, keeping her eyes on the treacherous terrain ahead. "It's an old atmospheric monitoring station I've modified. Not exactly diplomatic quarters, but it's secure and off the grid." Kexri's response echoed in her mind, weaker than before. "Your assistance is appreciated, Maya Chen, though I fear I have brought great danger to your world." The ambassador's patterns flickered, displaying swirls of deep purple that Maya interpreted as regret. The monitoring station appeared on the horizon, a squat structure half buried in the rocky ground. Maya had spent months fortifying it, installing salvaged security systems and stockpiling supplies. It wasn't much, but it had kept her alive during the worst storms that swept across the deadlands. Once inside, Maya helped Kexri onto a makeshift medical bed. The ambassador's injuries weren't immediately life-threatening, but the crash had taken its toll. Using her salvage medical scanner, Maya identified several areas of tissue damage that corresponded to darker patches in Kexri's bioluminescent patterns. "I need to know what's going on," Maya said as she applied regenerative patches from her medical kit. "You mentioned war. Between whom?" Kexri's patterns shifted to a complex arrangement of blues and greens. "The Collective and humanity stand at a crossroads. For centuries, we have watched your species' expansion into the galaxy with great interest. Some among us see humanity as a threat to be contained. Others, like myself, see potential allies." The ambassador winced as Maya treated a particularly deep injury. "I was en route to Earth, carrying proof that certain factions within the Collective have been secretly sabotaging human colonies, including New Eden. The terraforming failure here was no accident." Maya's hands stilled. "What?" "The evidence is stored in my ship's quantum core," Kexri continued. "If I can deliver it to your government, we can expose the truth and prevent an escalation to full-scale war." But those same factions learned of my mission. The crash was no accident. They sent ships to intercept me. Maya sat back, her mind racing. 3 years of watching her home slowly die, of helping the remaining colonists survive in their dwindling habitat dome. And now she learns it was all deliberate. She stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "Why should I believe you?" she demanded. "This could all be some elaborate trick. For all I know, you're the threat." Kexri's patterns rippled with what might have been understanding. Your skepticism is warranted. But consider, why would I crash land on an abandoned colony and place myself at the mercy of a single human if my intentions were hostile? Before Maya could respond, her security system chimed a warning. Something large was approaching from the upper atmosphere. Maya rushed to the monitoring station's main console, bringing up the salvaged radar display. 3 ships, their configurations matching the design of Kexri's crashed vessel, were descending toward the Deadlands. "They're here," Kexri said, attempting to rise. "The Hunter-class ships. They will not stop until they find me and destroy the evidence." Maya watched the ship's descent patterns, years of salvager instincts kicking in as she analyzed their search grid. "They don't know exactly where you are," she realized. "The Deadlands' mineral content must be interfering with their sensors. That's why you crashed here deliberately, isn't it?" The ambassador's patterns flickered with what might have been appreciation. "You are quite perceptive, Maya Chen." "Yes, I chose this location hoping it would buy time. But I cannot ask you to risk your life further. These hunters are elite warriors, trained to what?" Maya interrupted, a plan already forming in her mind. "To fight in an environment they don't understand. Against someone who knows every broken building and twisted piece of terrain for 50 kilometers. She checked her salvage pack, quickly inventorying her tools and supplies. "This is my home," she continued, her voice hardening. "They may be elite warriors, but I'm a survivor. And if what you're saying is true, these bastards are the reason my home is dying." She turned to Kexri, her expression determined. "We need to get to your ship and retrieve that quantum core before they do. How long until you can move?" Kexri's patterns shifted to a bright, steady blue. "With your medical assistance, I should be mobile within 2 hours. But Maya Chen, you must understand. Once we commit to this course, there will be no turning back. The hunters will not stop, and they will show no mercy." Maya checked the charge on her salvaged plasma cutter, a ghost of a smile crossing her face. "Good thing I stopped expecting mercy 3 years ago. Rest up, Ambassador. When you're ready, I'm going to show you how a New Eden salvager handles unwanted visitors." As she began gathering supplies and checking her equipment, Maya's mind was already racing through possibilities. The hunters might be technologically advanced, but she knew the Deadlands like no one else. Every unstable building, every patch of mutated vegetation, every treacherous sinkhole, they could all become weapons in the right hands. The radar showed the hunter ships beginning their search pattern. Maya had 2 hours to prepare, to turn her knowledge of this broken world into a defense against aliens who thought their superior technology guaranteed victory. They were about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge the galaxy had thrown at it so far. Maya Chen, the last salvager of New Eden Colony, was going to teach them about human ingenuity, one broken piece of technology at a time. Flight through the Deadlands. The twin moons of Kepler 186 cast eerie shadows across the Deadlands as Maya guided her rover through the twisted landscape. Beside her, Ambassador Kexri's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with tension, casting a soft blue glow over the vehicle's interior. They were taking a circuitous route back to the crashed ship, using the natural interference of the region's mineral deposits to mask their approach. "Your hunters," Maya said, keeping her voice low despite being well insulated in the rover. "They'll have standard search patterns, right? Military protocols." Kexri's patterns shifted to acknowledge the question. "Yes, the collective's hunters are methodical, precise. They will expand their search in geometric patterns, assuming their quarry will attempt to flee along the most efficient route." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "That's what I thought. They're expecting someone to think like them. Logical, efficient, predictable. But nothing about surviving on this rock has been logical or efficient." She guided the rover into a half-collapsed tunnel, part of the colony's abandoned mining network. The tunnel's walls were lined with veins of magnetite and other minerals that played havoc with scanning equipment. Maya had mapped these passages over years of salvage runs, marking each stable route and dangerous collapse. Now that knowledge was their greatest advantage. 3 minutes until we reached the first waypoint, Maya announced, checking the crude but effective proximity sensors she'd installed throughout the tunnel network. Time to see if my little welcome gifts work as planned. Above ground, the 3 hunter ships maintained their search pattern, their crews growing increasingly frustrated by the mineral interference that clouded their sensors. The lead hunter, designated Primary Executor Vextal, stood at his ship's command interface, 4-fingered hands moving across holographic controls. "Spread the search pattern wider," he commanded, his voice carrying the artificial harmony of extensive cybernetic enhancement. "The ambassador's ship is down there somewhere, and with it, the data that could destroy everything we've worked for." A sudden alert drew his attention. One of his sensor operators reported an energy signature, brief but distinct, near the edge of their search grid. Vextal's cybernetic eyes narrowed. It was exactly the kind of power surge that might come from a damaged ship's systems being accessed. "All units converge on those coordinates," he ordered. "Prepare for ground deployment. The traitor will not escape." Deep in the tunnel network, Maya's salvaged sensor display showed 3 red dots moving toward her first prepared location. She pressed a series of controls on her jury-rigged console, and the dots suddenly scattered, accompanied by the distant rumble of explosions. "Salvaged mining charges," she explained to Kexri. "Hardly military grade, but they'll think twice about landing in this sector now." She guided the rover through another turn, emerging from the tunnels into a grove of mutated vegetation, massive crystalline structures that had once been part of the terraforming project's attempt to create oxygen-producing plants. The crystal trees, as the colonists had called them, stood like frozen sentinels in the dim moonlight. Their surfaces reflected and refracted light in unpredictable ways, creating a disorienting maze of shadows and false images. Maya had once seen a salvage team get hopelessly lost in this grove, walking in circles until their oxygen ran out. "We're getting close to your ship," Maya said, checking her scanner. "But we'll have company soon. Those hunters aren't going to fall for the same trick twice." Kexri's patterns pulsed with concern. "The quantum core's security systems will only recognize my biosignature. We will need to remain at the crash site for approximately 3 minutes while I complete the extraction." 3 minutes, Maya muttered. "Might as well be 3 hours." She brought the rover to a stop behind a particularly large crystal tree, its branches casting fractured moonlight across their position. "But I've got an idea. Those hunters, they've got impressive technology, but they're relying on it too much. Time to show them some old-school human ingenuity." Maya reached into her salvage pack and pulled out a collection of small devices, salvaged communication units she'd modified over the years. Each one was capable of broadcasting a wide range of signals, from basic radio waves to more complex energy signatures. "Your people aren't the only ones who can play with quantum signatures," she said, quickly programming the devices. "These little noisemakers should create enough false readings to keep them guessing. And in this crystal grove, every signal's going to bounce and reflect until they won't know which way is up." She handed several of the devices to Kexri. "I need you to place these according to this pattern while I set up the rest. Think you can manage with those injuries?" The ambassador's patterns shifted to a determined configuration. "I am stronger than I appear, Maya Chen. Your trust in me will not be misplaced." As they worked quickly to set up their makeshift defense network, the hunter ships drew closer. Maya could hear the low hum of their engines now, feel the vibration in her bones. But for the first time since the colony's failure, she felt truly alive. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice, about fighting back against those who had condemned her home to a slow death. "Ready?" she asked Kexri as they finished their preparations. The ambassador's patterns pulsed with affirmation. "Then let's go crash a hunter party. Time to show them why humans don't play by anyone's rules but our own." The hidden station. The crystal grove erupted into chaos as Maya's devices activated simultaneously. Dozens of quantum signatures suddenly blazed to life, their signals bouncing and refracting off the crystalline structures in a dazzling display of electronic warfare. Above, the hunter ship's sensors were overwhelmed, their precise instruments rendered useless by the cascade of false readings. "Move now," Maya commanded, gunning the rover's engine. They burst from their hiding spot, racing toward the crashed ship. Behind them, she heard the distinctive sound of hunter drop pods hitting the ground. They were sending in ground forces, exactly as she'd hoped. Kexri's patterns flashed with alarm. They're deploying elite stalkers, cybernetically enhanced warriors designed for ground combat. Even with your disruption field, they can still track us visually. "Good," Maya said, a grim smile on her face. "Let them try to follow us through this." She swerved the rover into a narrow passage between two massive crystal trees, their branches creating a tunnel of reflected moonlight. The passage was barely wide enough for the rover, its sides scraping against the crystalline surfaces. Any pursuit would have to proceed single file, negating the hunter's numerical advantage. The crash site came into view, Kexri's ship still gleaming with its strange iridescent metal. Maya brought the rover to a stop in a small clearing, positioning it for a quick escape. 3 minutes, you said. Better make it fast. My tricks won't keep them confused forever. As Kexri moved toward the ship, Maya deployed her final set of defenses. She'd spent years collecting and modifying security devices from the colony's ruins, and now she put them all to use. Motion sensors, repurposed mining lasers, and salvaged defensive shields created a web of protection around their position. The first hunter appeared at the edge of the clearing, its cybernetic enhancements glowing with an eerie red light. The warrior was impressive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in advanced armor that seemed to shift and adapt to its surroundings. But Maya had been preparing for this moment. She triggered her first trap. A salvaged mining laser, hidden in the crystal growth, fired a precise beam. The hunter dodged with inhuman speed, but Maya hadn't been aiming for it. The beam struck a crystal tree instead, the energy refracting and splitting into dozens of smaller beams that filled the clearing with deadly light. The hunter's adaptive armor couldn't cope with attacks coming from every direction at once. It stumbled, systems overloaded, and Maya's second trap, a repurposed gravity anchor, slanted into the ground. "One down," she muttered, watching her sensors as more hunters approached. About a dozen to go. Inside the crashed ship, Kexri worked frantically to extract the quantum core. The ambassador's patterns pulsed with concentration as complex security protocols were navigated. 60% complete, the alien reported telepathically. "But Maya Chen, something is wrong. The data, it's more than just evidence of sabotage." A massive explosion rocked the clearing as 2 more hunters breached Maya's outer defenses. She triggered another set of traps, buying precious seconds. "Kind of busy out here, Ambassador." "What do you mean, more than sabotage?" "The faction within the collective. They didn't just sabotage your colonies. They've been studying humanity's responses to adversity, documenting how your species adapts and overcomes. This was all an experiment, a test tow." An energy blast cut through the air, nearly taking Maya's head off. She dove behind the rover, returning fire with a salvaged plasma cutter she'd modified into a makeshift weapon. A test for what? To prove humanity's potential as weapons. Kexri's mental voice was thick with shame. "They believe your species' remarkable adaptability could be harnessed, turned into a military asset." New Eden was just one of many colonies subjected to engineered disasters, each designed to test different aspects of human resilience. Maya's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. All the suffering, all the deaths, they'd been nothing but data points to these aliens. She watched as more hunters emerged from the crystal grove, their cybernetic enhancements glowing in the darkness. 1 minute remaining, Kexri reported. "But Maya Chen, you should know, the data also contains evidence that some of your own people were complicit. Certain corporations, military officials." "Of course they were," Maya spat, triggering her last line of defense. The ground beneath the approaching hunters suddenly gave way, a carefully prepared sinkhole filled with salvaged electromagnetic disruptors. Humans can be monsters too. But right now, I'm more interested in stopping these particular monsters. A new sound cut through the chaos, the distinctive whine of dropship engines. Maya's sensors showed 3 more hunter vessels descending toward their position. They were about to be completely surrounded. "Time to go," she shouted, just as Kexri emerged from the ship clutching the small pulsing device. "The quantum core. Please tell me you have a plan for getting this data where it needs to go, because we're about to have a lot more company than we can handle." The ambassador's patterns shifted to a configuration Maya hadn't seen before, something that might have been hope mixed with determination. "Yes, Maya Chen. But you may not like it. We need to reach the colony's old communications array. The one in the middle of the radiation zone, the most dangerous part of the Deadlands." Maya laughed despite herself as she gunned the rover's engine, smashing through the remains of her defensive perimeter. Perfect. Just another day in paradise. As they raced away from the crash site, pursued by both ground forces and aerial hunters, Maya realized that she'd finally found something worth more than mere survival. The truth about New Eden's fate, about humanity's future. It was worth dying for. But more importantly, it was worth living for, worth fighting for. And if these aliens thought they'd seen the full extent of human adaptability and resourcefulness, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. A salvager's legacy. The ancient communications array loomed before them, a skeletal monument to New Eden's failed ambitions. Radiation warnings flashed on Maya's heads-up display as she guided the rover through the final stretch of the Deadlands. The massive dish, once used to communicate with Earth, now stood silent in a sea of radioactive waste, the result of a catastrophic reactor meltdown during the colony's collapse. "Your pursuit craft cannot follow us here," Kexri observed, patterns flickering with what might have been approval. "The radiation interferes with their propulsion systems." Maya nodded, guiding the rover between pools of glowing radioactive material. "That's why I modified this old mining rover. Lead shielding, radiation-hardened electronics, salvaged from the colony's nuclear maintenance spots. We got about 30 minutes before even these protections fail." The ground forces weren't far behind, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to push through the radiation zones longer than their ships. But they too would be affected, their advanced systems degrading the longer they remained exposed. "The array's maintenance shaft," Maya said, bringing the rover to a stop at the base of the massive structure. Still sealed. The radiation actually helped preserve it. She pulled out her salvage pack, checking the seals on her radiation suit one final time. "What's the plan for that quantum core?" Kexri's patterns shifted to a complex configuration that Maya had learned to recognize as determination mixed with concern. The array's power signature, combined with the quantum core's data, will create a burst transmission that no faction of the collective can ignore or suppress. Every world, every station, every ship will receive the truth simultaneously. "And the radiation?" Maya asked, already suspecting the answer. "Will ensure the signal cannot be traced or blocked," Kexri confirmed. "But Maya Chen, you should know. The power required for such a transmission will likely destroy the quantum core. And the radiation exposure will fry every piece of tech we've got, including your life support systems and my radiation shields." Maya finished. "A one-way trip, but better than letting them turn more colonies into test subjects." She checked her scanner. The hunters were closing in, ready to make history, Ambassador. They made their way up the maintenance shaft, every step bringing them closer to lethal radiation levels. Maya's suit sensors were already warning of deteriorating protection. Behind them, she could hear the hunters beginning their ascent, their cybernetic systems crackling with radiation interference. The control room was exactly as Maya remembered it from her previous salvage attempts, a tomb of dead screens and silent consoles. But this time, she wasn't here to strip it for parts. This time, She was here to make it sing one last song. "The main transmission array needs to be aligned manually," she said, moving to the ancient controls. "The radiation ate through the servos years ago. I'll handle that. You get the quantum core ready." As Maya worked, her hands flying over familiar controls, she could feel the radiation beginning to seep through her failing shields. Her skin tingled, then burned, but she kept working. The hunters were getting closer. She could hear their heavy footsteps on the maintenance ladder. "They're almost here," she warned, making the final adjustments. The massive dish above them groaned as it turned, aligning with the coordinates Kexri had provided. "Tell me you're ready." The ambassador's patterns had grown dim, the radiation affecting their bioluminescence. "The core is prepared. But Maya Chen, you must know what you've done here. What you've risked for truth and justice. It embodies the very best of humanity." The first hunter burst through the doorway, its cybernetic enhancements sparking and malfunctioning in the intense radiation. Maya answered with her salvaged plasma cutter, the shot going wide, but forcing the hunter back. "Save the speeches, Ambassador. Let's finish this." Kexri connected the quantum core to the array's power systems. The ancient machinery hummed to life, power readings spiking as decades of dormant systems awakened. The hunters were regrouping, preparing for a final assault. Maya could see their shadows through the doorway. "Now, Ambassador," Maya shouted, laying down covering fire as more hunters appeared. "Do it now." Kexri's patterns flared one last time as they activated the quantum core. The room filled with impossible light as data and energy merged, the array above them channeling it all into a single massive burst. Maya felt the radiation shields in her suit fail completely as the transmission began. The quantum core pulsed, then shattered, its crystalline structure unable to contain the enormous energies being channeled through it. The hunters' cybernetic systems overloaded, sending them stumbling back down the maintenance shaft. And through it all, the truth about New Eden, about all the test colonies, streamed out into space at quantum speeds, impossible to stop or suppress. Maya collapsed, her radiation suit's warnings reaching critical levels. Through blurring vision, she saw Kexri slump against the console, their patterns barely visible now. But on the ancient screens above them, confirmation flashed. "Transmission successful." "Well, Ambassador," Maya managed through gritted teeth, "looks like we just changed the galaxy. Not bad for a salvager and a rogue diplomat." Kexri's response came weakly in her mind. "Indeed, Maya Chen. But perhaps we are not finished yet." A new sound cut through the radiation-soaked air, the distinctive hum of approaching ships. But these weren't hunter vessels. Through the control room's cracked windows, Maya saw sleek medical ships descending through the atmosphere, their hulls specially shielded against radiation. The collective's moderate factions responding to the transmission faster than anyone could have predicted. "Looks like some of your people still believe in doing the right thing," Maya said, fighting to stay conscious as rescue teams in radiation suits burst into the control room. "As do yours," Kexri responded, their patterns flickering weakly but steadily. "This is not the end, Maya Chen. This is a beginning." As the rescue teams rushed to stabilize them, Maya allowed herself to smile. New Eden had been an experiment in survival, but not the one their enemies had intended. It had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just adapting to adversity. It was finding allies in unexpected places, standing up for truth, no matter the cost, and never, ever giving up hope. The last thing Maya saw before losing consciousness was the twin suns of Kepler 186 rising over the horizon, casting new light on the ruins of New Eden. She had been wrong before. This wasn't just a colony of broken dreams and salvaged parts. It was the place where humanity had proven, once and for all, that their spirit could never be broken or controlled. It was the place where a simple salvager had helped change the course of two civilizations, armed with nothing but ingenuity, determination, and the courage to trust an alien with a dangerous truth. And maybe, just maybe, It would be the place where a new chapter in human-alien relations would begin, built not on experiments and manipulation, but on mutual respect and understanding. Maya Chen, the last salvager of New Eden, had finally found something that couldn't be salvaged: the past. But in doing so, she had helped salvage the future.